Now, I know what you're saying. You clicked on this video and this is a gimbal review on a drone channel. What in the world? Well, as it turns out, we've been using gimbals for a very long time. As a matter of fact, since the original Ronin right here, I bought this thing before Pilot Institute was even a thing. And then we got the RS2, and then we got the RS3 Pro, and then the RS3 Mini. We also have these little gimbals here, the Osmo Mobile, the Osmo Pocket 3. And then now, today, DJI is releasing this thing, which is the RS4. There's going to be a Pro model as well. Now, as you can tell, a slightly different size in here, right in between the Mini and the Pro from the RS3 version. Now, I'm going to talk about all the different features that are coming in here. Also, how to set up two of these motors in here, one for zoom and one for focus. And then we'll talk about how it integrates with all the different cameras. Let's get to it. Now, the gimbal is fully disassembled on here because I'm going to go part by part and kind of explain what's going on. First off, the battery. This is the same battery that you had on the RS3. This is the battery from the RS3 Pro, so slightly smaller, but these are compatible. So if you have one of these or an RS2 battery, you'll be able to reuse it. It's slightly bigger than the Mini battery, but still a great form factor. I think even my hands are not huge, but they're also not small. This is kind of a good fit right here. It also comes with the good old tripod. If you've ever used one of these on the previous version, then you can easily set it right here or use it in order to hold the gimbal in place. Now from here, the next piece is going to be, well, the main gimbal right here, which slides in nicely on top of your battery, and you're going to lock it by going down right here, nice and tight. Now what you'll notice is there's a way to lock this by hand if you wanted to. It's fully automated like the RS3 where you turn it on and off and it's going to lock in place. But the big difference with this new model is the plate that goes right here. You notice this is extremely short, and I think this is for transportation, by the way, so it takes a lot less space when it's folded. But this is the plate. It's a Manfrotto adaptable plate, so if you have a good old Manfrotto plate, you can put it right in here, or if your camera is already mounted to one of those, then you don't have to worry about it. You'll notice in here we have a bit of a slot where we can put it in, and then a tight screw right here to tighten it. And this is your plate. Now you're gonna say, why in the world would you add another plate just like this? Well, here's the trick. If we release, push the release button right here. Now at the bottom, we have the same symbols and we put them in place. And now your camera can be mounted vertically without messing with it like you did on the RS3 Pro. Very nifty if you're going to be doing a long photo shoot or video shoot using the camera in portrait, then it's nice and nifty. We'll leave it in landscape mode. Now next is the Manfrotto plate that comes with the gimbal in itself. We're going to slide it in place. And then you'll notice on the side here, we have a knob adjustment, so you can make very precise adjustments with your camera and then lock it in place. And of course, right on top here is the Arca compatible plate, which we're going to slide in. I already put it on my camera. This one comes with the 15mm rod attachment that we can put in. There's also a plate that comes into your box that doesn't have the rod attachment. So I'm gonna slide that in. And then in the back here, we have a way to tighten the camera sideways. We'll do the full adjustment in a minute. And then here we have a focus motor or a zoom motor. Now, this is kind of reminiscent. We have a lot of motors in the studio. This is very reminiscent of the original motor that we had on the original RS, and it has FIZ right here as well, except this one is not USB compatible, so it doesn't actually work. But if you have a RS2 or RS3 focus motor, then it's actually going to work. Now you notice on the side here, we mounted an RS2 motor, and then here I'm gonna mount this motor right here to do focus/zoom at the beginning. So you can untighten right here, slide that in, and then put it right here. Now we're using the GH5S, which we've been using outdoors quite a bit. And right now it's mounted on top of the zoom ring. So this is gonna be used for zoom. And I'm gonna show you how to set that up in a second in the settings right here. Now, before we use the camera, we have to balance it. This is very important. Make sure you have all the equipment on here. Now I'm missing a few cables, which is fine for right now, although you would wanna do this with all your cables set up. I'm gonna go and unlock the yaw right here. I'm going to unlock the pitch, and then also we're going to unlock the roll right here. So make sure the camera can freely move. Now what you have to do is you have to make sure the camera can be stable. So what I like to do is first I like to do the back right here. So I'm going to move this arm to the left a little bit. Now there's new Teflon coated arms right here, which makes it a little bit easier to slide these. In the past, you kind of have to hold them and push along. Not always super easy. I'm gonna do this one right here. So this one is the only one right here where you go up and down, where it becomes a little bit more tricky to push it in, but again, the Teflon coating does help quite a bit. And then this one right here is actually set up nicely. So it looks like this gimbal is pretty much ready to go. Now I did that a little bit before we started recording the video, so that's a little bit of cheating. Then I'm gonna power it on. So tap and hold, and the camera comes on. The screen comes on in the back. There's a beautiful screen. Now, if you look in the back of the screen, right away in the top right corner, it tells you if the camera is balanced or not. And if it's green, then it's good. If you start to put a little bit of weight on it, then it's gonna turn red or orange. It means your camera is not balanced correctly. There's also a way to do the testing inside of the menu, and I'm gonna show you the menus towards the end of the video. Let's talk about the menu in the back. We have the regular controls that you've seen before if you've used one of these cameras, where you can go left and right and up and down using the joystick, the 4D button in the back. And then you have the record button on the back here, which is going to allow you to take photos or start your videos. If your camera is compatible, this one is, so we're in luck. And then on the right side, they made switching between the PTF, PF, and FPV mode very easy with a nice switch, which means that you can go from one mode to the next. PTF, pan, tilt, and follow. PF, pan and follow, and lastly FPV, first person view mode. In the PF mode, you can move the camera as you pitch down, it will pitch down as well. In the PF mode, the pitch is set in place. You can't change it unless you use the joystick in the back. And in FPV mode, you also add a roll as well if you want to be more like on board in your footage. You can double tap on the button right here and the camera is going to recenter. 3 times puts it in self-portrait mode, and then 2 times again brings it back to the front right here. And on the left side here, we have a new button which allows you to switch between using the 4D switch in the back, the joystick, to either tilt up and down or yaw left and right. Or if you switch this button up, this is now going to control your zoom. Now, it's not working right now because we haven't plugged any of the cables, and this is what I want to get into next. If you're going to be using only one motor, then this is going to be pretty straightforward. You're going to use one cable, you're going to plug it into the USB plug right here, and then you're going to plug it into your motor right down here. Make sure it's not in front of your shot, and now this focus motor is going to be powered. Here it says F for focus or Z for zoom. We're going to keep it on focus even though it's connected to the zoom section here, and I'm going to show you why in a second. Now, if I go in here and I turn the wheel, now my wheel right here is controlling my zoom. Now you hear as I go too far, it starts to grab, which is not good. So we can go into the settings. So if you swipe down from the top, then you have a bunch of menus becoming available here. And right here on the bottom left corner, you have the focus wheel setup. And you notice in here, we can calibrate the motor, which is not necessary at this stage, but we're gonna do manual endpoints. And why is this? Is because I wanna make sure that the camera, when it's all the way retracted, that's our beginning point. So I'm gonna do it, there you go, it's stopped. Now we're gonna click on manual endpoints. I'm gonna click confirm. And this is our start point, yep. And I'm gonna go and zoom in as far as I wanna go until the camera kind of stops right here. I'm going to set endpoint right here, which means what? Which means that now I have the full range and it's not going to let me go any further, and it's not going to make my camera shake. And this is very important before you start using it. Now you now have to go back, top left corner, slide back up, and then now if we slide from the bottom, we can go into the dial function here and make sure that you are set up to the focus motor. What does that mean? It means that the dial in the back of the gimbal right here is now going to be set up to control this motor. Now you can do it so that you can use focus using Bluetooth. This camera is unfortunately not compatible with that. Or you can see all the other options in here. We can use ISO, we can use pan tilt, anything you want using this on the back as an additional control. Now that's very nifty at this stage. Now you might be wondering, well, this is nice and dandy, but what if I want to control also my focus wheel right here and at the same time being able to control the zoom? Well, it is possible. You can use another motor like I've mentioned before from the RS2 or from the RS3, like the one we have installed right here. And we're just simply gonna have to set it up as a focus motor, while this one is gonna set up as a zoom motor. How do we do this? First off, let's go right here, single press on the power button. Press one more time on the power button until it's red blinking on the Z. Z for zoom. Now you notice what happens now. If I move this wheel, nothing happens. But if I switch this left switch here to the zoom functionality and I use the joystick, now this is able to control my zoom. Now you notice it does this because there's no way to set an endpoint on this functionality. So you're gonna have to be very smooth and very controlled. How do we control this one? Well, it's gonna do it by itself. I'm gonna use this USB port. I'm gonna plug it on the second USB that's down in here and then plug it down to the bottom of this motor right here. And now we have dual motor control. I can move the wheel back here for my focus and I can use the 4D button up and down for my zoom. And of course, I got one more cable that I can plug in the back here. There is a USB for camera control. I can bring this directly into my camera. And now I'm able to control the camera, start and stop, focus, and zoom all in one gimbal. Now let's go back and take a look at the menus in the back of the gimbal. The first one on the top left here, this is the ability to start calibration for the camera in itself. And if I do this, it's gonna go and kind of shake to make sure that everything is calibrated correctly. It takes a few seconds. You can tell we're already at 40% here, but when you're done, you'll have a fully calibrated camera and it should be ready to go. And on the bottom right corner is the speed of the gimbal for follow. So this is how fast the motors are gonna spin as you turn the camera. Usually we have it on medium. It depends on really what you're doing. If you're doing some action, you probably wanna have it on fast. And then if we swipe from the top, on the top left corner, you have some display information here. You can flip the screen if you wanted to, if you had the camera gimbal inverted. You can also have auto lock after so many seconds. It's gonna lock the motors and save your battery. And then here we have the brightness. While the camera is locked, we have it at 50%, which is fine. And then in the top right corner, what we have here is the Bluetooth connectivity, if you're able to make it work with the list of compatible cameras. Bottom left corner, we've kind of taken a look at that already, which is the focus motor, calibration, manual endpoint. This menu is pretty simple. I'm going to disable these points that we made earlier because now it's being used for focus. On the bottom right corner is the overall settings. This disables the selfie mode where you triple tap on the trigger right here. I'm gonna actually disable that. We never use selfie mode. The orbit follow right here is in case you're doing an orbit around an object. This is supposed to make it a little bit smoother as you go around in PF and PTF mode. The auto lock is actually a really interesting function on and off, meaning that when you turn on and off the camera, if you have it on recenter and lock, the camera is going to look just like this. If you have it on fold and lock, when you turn off the gimbal, it's going to look like the RS3 Pro right here, kind of more lined up. Personally, if I'm shooting, I prefer to have it in recenter and lock. If I'm folding the gimbal, then I can do this manually to make it look like this before I put it in the bag. You can also do nothing and kind of let it floating, being unlocked if you turn on and off. Now going back, sleep mode, same thing. What happens in sleep mode? Does it go into recenter and lock, or does it just stay kind of floating around with the motors turned off? Going back into the main menu, we have the silent mode, which kind of silences the motors a little bit. Although I have to say, I have not found that they are extremely loud when they're in non-silent mode. Then you have the push mode. This is pretty cool. We can push pan and push tilt, meaning that when we go right here, I can move the motors to whatever position I want, either on the tilt or on the pan, but not on the roll. So be careful on the roll. It's always going to come back to the main position. I'm going to turn this off and turn this off. Double tap right here to recenter. There you go. Going back to the next menu, horizontal calibration. This is cool if you're having an issue with horizontal calibration, which we did for a while in one of the video shoots. So you can go in here and do the horizontal calibration. It's going to take a few seconds, but when you're done, it should be nice and level. But if you're not, you can also do it manually by clicking Tune Manual here and then adjust your levels. We had to put it at -0.03 when we did this during the last shoot. Going back, we have the gimbal auto check, which is the full check of the gimbal in itself. It's going to go up and down and left and right to make sure everything has been done correctly. I'm not going to do it right now, but this is something that's very useful if you want to make sure before a shoot that you're all good to go. That's how you would do it. And then everything else is kind of secondary information about the device and the firmware and all that good stuff. Now getting out of this menu, scroll from the bottom up, and then we can do that again from the bottom up we have another menu hiding here. Joystick speed, this is how fast this joystick in the back here is going to be moving. Based on my testing, this does not have any effect on the zoom. I think it's only when you have it with the button down right here, where the camera tilts up and down, we can have it so that it moves a little bit smoother. Slow is probably not a bad setting if you're getting started. Then we have the joystick smoothness here, which is also going to say, by the time you move this, how much input are you giving? So medium is not a bad setting either. Again, it depends on what you're going to be recording. And then the dial function, we talked about this already. Here you're going to select what the dial in the back here is actually going to do. Right now we have it to control the motor. And we have some more settings in this bottom right corner here with the fact that you can reverse the dial and change the speed of the dial as well. Now from here, you can swipe from the right to the left to have access to another set of settings. If we click on the M button, we can have it to either take a photo or do a custom function. Now, with that being said, I'm not gonna lie, I don't know where you set that up. I don't know if it's because we have a pre-release version at the moment, but I have not been able to customize this button. So I'm gonna leave it on take photos. And we have the focus motor torque. It's set on low right now. Obviously, this speaks of itself how you wanna set that up. And then lastly, we have the press and hold trigger. What does it do? We have it on gimbal lock right now, which means that if you press and hold the trigger back here as you are holding the camera is gonna stay where it's at. This is great if you wanted to do a side shot and keep the camera aiming in the same exact direction. You can also have it that when you push, it temporarily switches to the FPV mode. And this is it really. As far as functionalities, this is the whole entire gimbal right here. Now you can add accessories on the side. You notice we have one in the front here with a 12mm rod. This now takes 15mm rod, which is a nice change, which is more industry standard. Now you also have this carrying handle here in order to go into like the briefcase mode, I think it's called, where you can easily slide it on the side here and tighten it. You can play with this. It's got different options, nice and tight. And then here you can change where the angle of this handle is going to be. So pretty versatile, quite frankly. And then lastly, there's a whole app that comes with this gimbal. It's the DJI Ronin app, where you can go and control the camera in a lot of different ways, including a virtual joystick, which is going to allow you to go up and down and left and right, or even tilt the camera at will. So this is great if you want to do this from a distance maybe. We also have the ability to do the force mobile, which is really cool. Now you notice on the roll, it's turned off by default, which means that once I turn on force mobile, hold the phone in the position where you want the camera to be neutral, and then turn on the force mobile. And now you have the ability to go up by pitching your phone up, and then left by yawing your phone left and right. Now, if you also wanted to add the roll, then you would do the roll like this. Some people don't like the roll because it's not a really natural movement unless you're flying a drone FPV. So most people turn off the roll, and then in this case, all they have to do is yaw the phone like this and then pitch up and down. I have to say it's extremely reactive, but every once in a while you have to recenter and refresh. You notice right here I have it, the phone is a little bit tilted even though it's not here. So you would just do recenter and then you'd be good to go again. Now you can go back and also create panoramas from here. You can do time lapse. All of these are going to allow you to create different points on the screen where the camera is going to go from time to time, how long you want between each of them. You can do that instead of a time lapse. You can do that as a track functionality. So the camera would go here for so many minutes and then go here and then here. Also very great if you're maybe on the set or trying to do a very specific movement repeated over and over again. You can also use a controller like a PlayStation 4 controller in here to control the gimbal. We've done that multiple times. You can also use the focus control, which would move the focus wheel that you have set up. And then if you move the phone sideways, now you have control of the gimbal in itself and also of the focus or the zoom, depending on how you've set up your system. So you could zoom and tilt up and down and pan, do all that, and also control the camera directly from the app. Now you might be wondering what I like and didn't like about this gimbal. Well, first off, I like the size factor. I think this is great to have it between the Mini and then the RS3 Pro, which was a little bit bigger. I think this is the right size. Also, I think it's very comfortable to shoot for long periods of time. The people in my team would tell you the same thing because we recorded a couple of videos using this as a test, and that's what they said. Now, the ease of use is also one of these things where all of the menus being in the back right here, nice and accessible, and then the ability to have those two motors connected, which was also a great plus. Now, also the battery life is pretty good. This is 12 hours with this battery pack. They're also supposed to be coming up with a much bigger battery pack that would last for 29 and a half hours. I don't know why you would need that, but maybe if you're traveling somewhere, I don't know. Also, what I really didn't care for was the calibration. We had a few issues keeping this level during one of the shots that we had. Still trying to figure out exactly what happened. And then also, when you open the package, the size of the gimbal is much smaller than what we were expecting. So this may not be able to support a much larger camera. Like I said, 3 kilos, 6.6 pounds maximum capacity. If you need something bigger, then the Pro version is likely going to be doing it for you.